The story of the Mughal Empire begins not in India, but in the mountains of Central Asia, with a man who lost his homeland and found an empire. His name was Zahiruddin Muhammad Babur. In 1526, Babur marched into North India with an army of just 12,000 men and faced Ibrahim Lodi, the Sultan of Delhi, who had over 100,000 soldiers. But Babur had something new: gunpowder, cannons, and a battle strategy called Tulguma. At the First Battle of Panipat, the cannons roared and the Delhi Sultanate collapsed. Babur took the throne and founded what would become one of the richest and most powerful empires in world history. He ruled for only 4 years. Before he died in 1530, he wrote in his memoir, the Baburnama, about the beauty and challenges of Hindustan, and he left the crown to his son Humayun. Humayun inherited a throne, but not stability. He was idealistic and not a strong politician. Within a decade, his own general Sher Shah Suri defeated him at the battles of Chausa and Kannauj. Humayun was forced to flee for his life. For the next 15 years, he wandered through Persia and Afghanistan, living in exile. During this time, many believed the Mughal dream was over. But Sher Shah died, and Humayun saw an opening. With Persian help, he recaptured Delhi in 1555. His second reign lasted barely 6 months. One night, while climbing the stairs of his library, he slipped, fell, and died from his injuries. He left behind a 13-year-old boy named Akbar. No one could have guessed that this boy would turn a fragile kingdom into a continent-spanning empire. Akbar came to the throne in 1556 after winning the Second Battle of Panipat against Hemu. He was young, but he had advisors like Bahram Khan who taught him war and governance. Akbar would go on to rule for nearly 50 years, and those 50 years became the golden age of the Mughals. Akbar was different from the rulers before him because he understood that India could not be ruled by force alone. It had to be ruled by inclusion. He abolished the jizya tax on non-Muslims. He married Rajput princesses and formed alliances with Hindu kings. He invited scholars of all religions to debates at Fatehpur Sikri in his Ibadat Khana. He created a new land revenue system called Zabt that made the empire incredibly wealthy. His court became famous for the Navaratnas, the 9 jewels, which included Birbal known for wit, Tansin known for music, and Abul Fazl who wrote the Akbarnama. Under Akbar, the Mughal Empire stretched from Gujarat to Bengal and from Kashmir to the Deccan. Historians estimate that around 25% of the world's population lived under Mughal rule by the end of his reign. That is why he is remembered as Akbar the Great. After Akbar died in 1605, his son Jahangir took the throne. Jahangir was less interested in conquest and more interested in art, gardens, and pleasure. He was a patron of Mughal miniature painting and kept detailed journals of his life. His reign is also remembered because of his wife, Nur Jahan. She was intelligent, politically active, and for a time she was the real power behind the throne. Coins were even minted in her name. During Jahangir's rule, the empire remained peaceful and prosperous. Trade with Europe increased, and English and Dutch traders began arriving at Mughal ports. Jahangir was followed by his son Shah Jahan in 1628. Shah Jahan's name is linked to beauty and tragedy. He is most famous for building the Taj Mahal in memory of his wife Mumtaz Mahal, who died in 1631 while giving birth to their 14th child. The Taj Mahal took 22 years to build and required 20,000 workers. It became a symbol of love and one of the wonders of the world. Shah Jahan also built the Red Fort in Delhi and the Jama Masjid. His reign represented the height of Mughal architecture and wealth, but behind the marble and gold, there was trouble. Shah Jahan had 4 sons, and they began fighting for succession while he was still alive. The most ambitious was Aurangzeb. In 1658, Aurangzeb defeated his brothers, imprisoned his father in Agra Fort, and took the throne. Shah Jahan spent the last 8 years of his life looking out at the Taj Mahal from his prison window. Aurangzeb ruled from 1658 to 1707, longer than any other Mughal emperor. He was devout, disciplined, and extremely ambitious. Under him, the empire reached its greatest geographical size, covering almost the entire Indian subcontinent. But his style of rule was very different from Akbar's. Aurangzeb was orthodox. He reimposed the jizya tax, he restricted some Hindu festivals, and he destroyed a number of temples. He spent most of his reign fighting constant wars in the Deccan against the Marathas. These wars drained the treasury and the army. While the empire looked strong on the map, it was becoming weak from the inside. When Aurangzeb died in 1707 at the age of 88, he left behind an empire that was too large to manage and too poor to sustain. What followed was a rapid decline. After Aurangzeb, the Mughal throne saw a series of weak emperors who ruled for only a few years each. Powerful nobles, called wazirs, began controlling the government. Regional powers like the Marathas, Sikhs, and Nawabs started breaking away. The empire was also attacked from outside. In 1739, Nader Shah of Persia invaded Delhi, looted the Peacock Throne and the Koh-i-Noor diamond, and left the capital in ruins. Later, the Marathas marched into Delhi and took control of much of North India. The final blow came from a trading company that became a ruling power, the British East India Company. At first, they were just merchants, but as the Mughal central authority collapsed, the British began collecting taxes, raising armies, and defeating local rulers. By the early 1800s, the Mughal emperor was nothing more than a figurehead living inside the Red Fort. The last emperor was Bahadur Shah Zafar. He was a poet and a Sufi, not a general. In 1857, Indian soldiers rebelled against the British in what is known as the First War of Independence. Bahadur Shah Zafar was declared the symbolic leader of the rebellion. But the British crushed the uprising. Delhi was bombed, thousands were killed, and Zafar was arrested. He was tried and exiled to Rangoon in Burma, where he died in 1862. With his death, 332 years of Mughal rule officially came to an end. Even though the empire fell, its influence never did. The Mughals left behind a language, Urdu, that became the voice of poetry and culture across South Asia. They left behind food, biryani, kebabs, korma, and sweets that are still central to the region's cuisine. They left behind administration, art, and architecture that still define India and Pakistan. The Taj Mahal, the Red Fort, Fatehpur Sikri, and countless gardens and mosques are still visited by millions every year. The Mughals also created a model of governance that mixed Persian, Turkish, and Indian traditions. For over 3 centuries, they connected the subcontinent through roads, trade, and a common court culture. So how did such a powerful empire fall? Historians still debate it. Some blame Aurangzeb's religious policies for alienating Hindus and draining resources. Some blame the weak successors who could not hold the empire together. Some point to the rise of new powers like the Marathas and the British who filled the vacuum. The truth is probably a mix of all of these. An empire that began with 12,000 men and cannons ended with a poet in exile, because power, wealth, and territory are never enough without unity and strong leadership. The Mughal Empire is important not just because of its size, but because of its impact. It shaped the way India looked, spoke, ate, and governed for centuries. It was a time of both great cruelty and great beauty, of wars and poetry, of conquest and culture. From Babur's cannons at Panipat to Zafar's prison in Rangoon, the Mughal story is the story of rise, glory, and fall. And even today, when we walk through the gates of the Taj Mahal or hear a ghazal in Urdu, we are still living in the shadow of the Mughals.